seeing color in a more horizontal way. So thinking about something that goes around the head rather than going down. If you think as soon as we start going down, and I'm talking about the finished look, not how we actually do the technique. So think about something that goes around the head, and that's what's making something look kind of modern and kind of cool at the moment. And really what we're thinking about doing is kind of lightening the way around that center panel in a very, very diffused way. And it's really simple to do and quick. And I think the nice thing about this is if you have a client that has that one color, or they just normally have one color and you refresh the ends with a demi, it's a great way of putting something lighter through. It's not with a big commitment, and they can just carry on coming back and having their root retouch, and that's just going to kind of grow out. So I'm literally just going to divide it kind of around the center, and then I'm just going to split it just behind the ear. And that's something that we always do, is just kind of take that at the back of the ear. The same on the other side. And then across the back, there's kind of two ways of being inspired. And one way is kind of, you sort of see something and you want to turn that into something on somebody's head. And I think the other one is you think something and it's very much about a feeling. And I think really this is a kind of bit of a mixture of the two, really. So 1.5 inches or so below that center part there. And what we're going to do is very simply, and the great thing about this is we're thinking about lightening that panel in the middle. So what we want to do is think about where we want to see that on her head. So for her, I'd probably think I'm going to start around that line of that fringe there. So we can almost continue that around, and it's going to accentuate this shape here. So I'm going to take a section. I'm not going to take it too fine, and we're just going to do some weaves. Now, the trick with this is don't do your weaves too thin. You want to get quite a nice bulk of hair in there. So keep them kind of quite thick, quite close together. And then we're just going to take a foil, like so. Place that under the hair. Now, this is where we just need to start placing our color through there. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to really see it coming from there to just below that cheekbone there. So I'm going to almost color that center bit in solid, like so. And then what we're going to do is just feather that up to soften that line, because what we don't want is we don't want it to look like a really harsh line coming around the head. We want this soft diffusion, so it's almost this kind of like this sunlight on the hair constantly. And the next thing we're going to do is to make sure we always get it in the same place, I'm just going to mark almost just like so. I'm just going to rip a little bit out of my foil, like so, and then I know where I have to apply that color. So the great thing about it is, as I said, you don't necessarily want to make it too kind of crazy contrasting. So the great thing about it is, if you've got an all-over color, we can either work something with a much brighter tone through there, or we can use some lightening product. So for us, that would be our enlightener powder. Or the other thing you can do, if you just want to shift it up maybe a level, the other thing I really love to do is just use a high lift color. Now, all the manufacturers will kind of tell us that tint won't lift tint, and to an extent it won't, but we all know we can get that bit of a shift. And actually what I find is really nice with our extra lifting cream, which is from our high lift range, is it actually lifts us up really well over the top of colored hair, and also keeps a really good tonal value. And I think that's what's really nice. And what I tend to find a lot of the time is if I'm just lifting up with a high lift, what happens is it keeps the same tonal family. It doesn't really strip it in the same way that a kind of more of a traditional lightening product would. And so quite a lot of the time, we're not really having to go in and tone that too much. So I'm just going to finish this side here. So again, what's quite nice is as you work through, don't try and keep all your weaves all the same size. It's quite nice as you work through to get that bit of variation in them, and it just gives you a slightly softer look. So again, always working from where you have those marks on the foil, So remember to keep those in view, otherwise you'll get really lost and you'll end up with it on this on one side and down here on the other. And then I'll just finish that top one off, and then I'll just go on to the other side very quickly. So you can see it's really quick, and really, in all honesty, if you're doing this behind the chair, you really don't want to be spending more than 10, 15 minutes doing it. Oh, I love these girls. They're so